Well, hi folks, thanks for taking the time to join me again today. I'm very much looking forward to speaking to Nancy that I've got with me today. So how are you doing today, Nancy?
I'm doing fine today, thanks.
Yeah, you were telling me just beforehand you were actually excited about this. Most people are nervous, but I've not actually had somebody saying they were excited before.
Well, I've been going over it in my mind, so it is. It's good to witness. That's the thing.
Yeah, good to share your story about how God's impacted on your life.
Yes.
And I was going to ask you, how's the past year been for you generally, with all the restrictions and rules and everything that's been going on?
I have been fine, actually. I decided at the start when they said it was going to be a 12-week lockdown that I would try and do something. So I started crocheting blankets for the missionaries, which I've been doing since last March. So I keep doing a wee bit at a time.
Great.
And then I had Margie found photographs that I went through and through a lot of things and just made myself, just do things like that. I also started writing my memoirs, so that's another thing. So
that's something for us to look forward to being published, maybe.
Oh no, I don't think so.
Well, we've got a lot to try and cover today. You've had a fairly long and interesting life, lots of stories to tell, I'm sure. I'm not going to ask you how old you are. I shouldn't do that.
I can tell you if you want.
Just give us a wee clue. Have you had your COVID injection yet?
Yes, I have.
Aye, well, that gives us a wee clue.
That's a wee over 80. I'm 83 this year. So.
Well, you've given it away now. So. Good stuff. Right, let's rewind back to the beginning, and maybe you could just tell us about where it was you were born, where it was you were brought up.
Right, I was born in Airdrie just before World War II, and then of course when that started we went down to Moodiesburn to where my granny stayed, and so that would be nearer her during the war. So so that was me in Moodiesburn for years and years, before, well, till I was 25 actually. Right. So.
And tell us a wee bit about the family then.
Well, my mother and father were both Christians, and they were godly people. I was at meetings from I was 6 weeks old, so everything was with a terrific Sunday school in our hall, 130 children. Right. So there was maybe 5 or 6 children and a seat and a teacher at the end. So there must have been 15, 20 teachers. That shows you what the meeting was. Yeah. And I never missed a Sunday for 13 years. Right. So I should have learned a lot in that time. There was special prizes given by some of the people in the meeting. For the little girls, there was a doll, and the little boys, there was a train. The older boys and older girls, and a boy and a girl in the Bible class got a watch. So there was one man who was quite well off, used to go to Switzerland to buy the watches. So I got both a doll and a watch. So
aye, that was a good incentive to keep going.
Yes, yeah. We went from Muirhead meeting at one point to a small meeting in Glenboig, which was people came over from Coat Dyke meeting in Airdrie to run it. But eventually, my father died there when we were there, and then it had to be disbanded because we were in a Masonic hall. There was only about 10 or 12 of us. So my mother and I and my brother went back to Muirhead meeting. Right.
So you obviously had a lot of Christian influence as a youngster, Sunday school and that every week.
Oh, yes.
What age was it when you yourself became a Christian then?
That I'm not very sure, but I was a very wee girl. I do know that. It happened on a Sunday night. We were at the meeting, and one of the things I do remember was a Mr. Addis spoke. They must have been speaking on hell. And when we got back home, I said to my mum, I'm not wanting to go to hell. So she explained it to me. And I usually said my prayers anyway. So I just accepted the Lord as my saviour that night. I reckon I would be about 7 or 8 or about then, because my brother's 9 years younger than me, and it was before, he wasn't there, so it's definitely before that, you know.
Right.
So,
and you've gone to prove the reality of the decision that you made
oh
way back
yes,
then throughout
oh yes,
over a number of years. So
I said to my mum when I was 12 that I was wanting to get baptised. I said I was too young and we'll wait a wee while. So I waited a wee while, and then when I was 14, again saw the elders and asked to get baptised. And the hall was packed. I had all the people from the village.
right.
I knew, because my mother was quite well known through my granny having the wee shop, you see.
We'll think a bit more about how, you know, how your Christian faith has impacted upon your life as
Yes.
we continue through the story. So at school, you know, tell us a wee bit about what you were like, sort of growing up at school and what your interests were.
I suppose I was an average pupil, but it was Christ in higher grade school. I only went up to third year. So, but when I became 15, which was the leaving age at that time, I left to go and get a job. And my mother and father weren't all that well off, you see, so we decided that I would go and find a job. So I did in the cooperative in Kindorit for a year, you know.
Right.
So
you've done that job for a year, and then
a year.
What did you go into after that?
I went to college in Glasgow. What was for comptometers. Now these were just, I don't know if you've heard of a comptometer.
Absolutely no idea.
It's like a large calculating machine. You were able to add up on it. It had 9 by 9, 1 to 9 times columns, and then there was a 10 shillings. Of course, that was old money, and then your pounds, shillings, and pence. Then, so I learned how to work that, which you were able to do 4 things: multiplying, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So I could do all that, and then I got a job in the coal board,
right,
in Glasgow. So, and then I went on to go to 2 other collieries, one at Bedley and one at Auchengeich.
Right. Okay. And what did you do with them then?
Well, in the Glasgow office, I worked in the purchase invoice department, and I had to check all the invoices that came in for them being accurate, you know. So, and I could go on the phone if they weren't, you know, things like that. And then you got them in bundles, so you had to add up and send it through to a department that made punch cards. Now that is called Hollerith, and they punched the cards and then put them through what was a computer that day. But I mean, a computer was absolutely a huge thing, you know. I mean, our back hall in the Gospel Hall was slightly less than that. Was the size was for the one computer, and I don't know what generation we're on now, but at that time that was the 12th generation computers. Right. That we were using. So it's just shows you the advance in things.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of interaction with the miners themselves then, or was it more a back office type job?
Well, when I was at the collieries, when I was at Bedley Colliery, I was at the inquiry desk. So of course wages were paid on a Friday, money wise, you know. So when they got their pay slips, they would knock on the window, and I was the one that had to go and look up and see whether we'd paid them the right thing or not. Right. they were quite making sure they got what they deserved, you know.
Yeah.
And things like that, you know. In Auchengeich, Auchengeich had a disaster, and there was 59 men killed in it. That was a terrible tragedy, and that was down to people stealing copper wire down the mines, which meant that the fans didn't work, so it didn't clear away the coal gas. So as the men went down into the actual pit, it was what they called black coal gas, and they were just killed instantly. They wouldn't know what happened to them, really, you know.
Right.
There was only one man got up out of the pit, and unfortunately went straight out into the fresh air, which was too much. Having probably had the coal dust in it, and he died upset. And as far as I know, he was the only Christian amongst all the people that were killed, you know.
Yeah.
So I was at Bedley Colliery. That happened when I was at Bedley Colliery. Then I was transferred to the actual colliery, and they took all the staff down the mines, you know, to see where it happened, you know. But nothing really much to see because it was all bricked off and that, you know. So it was really like a graveyard because they wouldn't get these men out, you know. My time as a late teenagers, early 20s, a lot of my time was spent in Glasgow because I worked there anyway. And it was quite a crowd of us used to go out. And Saturday nights we would meet up for a tea somewhere, and then we'd go to a meeting. There must have been about 16 assemblies or so in Glasgow at that time, you know. So, and then on Saturday nights we had a open air in Sauchiehall Street, and that was run by George Russell, who was married to Christine Pollard's sister Moira, that run that, you know. So it was quite a crowd of Christians used to join, and you know, they'd all have a wee shout and that, you know. That was Saturday nights. Sunday nights there was one a wee bit down the road at Pitt Street, but still on Sauchiehall Street, and there must have been 150 people there. It was huge, you know, and they had a stand that you could stand on. I used to get asked to sing over the loudspeaker, so
in front of all those people out in the...
Oh yes, they were. If they saw me there in the nights, they would just point down to me and say one or something, you know. So I would be then called on to sing. So I always had to have my hymn books with me, you know. Another thing I did in Glasgow, I used to go to Porch Hall Bible class on a Sunday afternoon. I must have known somebody that went, and I used to go there, and I got friendly with people there. And one of the men in the meeting used to go to Glasgow Royal Infirmary for services. So we used to go, he asked if I would like to go. So I used to go there. It was just quite a crowd for, well, not that many, maybe 8 or so. And we'd have about 3 or 4 services in different wards. The one week it was medical, the medical side. The other week it was orthopaedics, you know. So we would there, and then we'd go around and hand out tracts. So that was quite a part too, you know, that you were doing things for the Lord. You could chat with people, you know.
And so you moved to Arbroath. That must have been quite a big change.
That was a big change. Aye.
Seaside town.
I was 25 by then. And my mother had seen this wee ad in the paper for a wee guest house in Arbroath, you see. So we decided to go and see it, and then, cut a long story short, we moved up to Arbroath a year later. And so I was there for 48 years. So I, of course, had to find a job. My brother was 16, so he had to find a job or something. So he got an apprenticeship with Briggs, the people that did roads and that. And so he did an apprenticeship there practically right away. And I got a job within a fortnight, so that was absolutely brilliant, you know. So it was all go in the guest house. We had, you know, I did a lot of the baking, you know, make loaves and cakes and whatnot. It was all meals in those days. You had breakfast, lunch, high tea, and supper, you know. So it was quite
a lot of work.
A lot of work, yes.
So you were kind of helping out with there as well as doing your job.
And we used to have a sing-song in the lounge at nights, you see. It was only 6 bedrooms, you know, but we got quite a good folks coming to it, you know. My mother had that guest house just for 6 years, and she moved to what was known as the Ketties, which is where I eventually had, you know.
After you'd moved to Arbroath, you met your husband.
Yes.
As well. So maybe you could tell us a wee bit about him, how you first come
right.
Come well, with him.
I worked in what was known as Giddings and Lewis Fraser's, a factory that built drilling machines and, you know, things like that. And I used to I used to meet him in the line of work, because I eventually at one point became the supervisor for the computer department, where they punch cards and that. And when it was all getting changed around, he was the foreman electrician, you see. So I kind of knew him that way. And then, but when I was there, he had actually lost his wife. She was 37 and had a leukemia. And so it was through the works like a wildfire, you know, with Fred. And so a wee while after he'd lost his wife, he asked me if I would go out with him. But then, because I was a Christian, I thought, well, I don't think he's a Christian. So I said, I'm sorry, I really can't go out. I wouldn't like to start something. I would just have to stop. I said, because I'm a Christian. And I said, I don't think you're a Christian, because we knew all the Christians. You know, there was a Baptist church and a mission and the meeting. So I mean, Christians, Arbroath's not that big. It's bigger now, right enough. But so when he asked me, eventually he said to me, you seem to have something I've not got, because he was an elder in the church. And so I thought, well, you can't not tell people if they ask you about the Lord. So I had to decide that I would have to at least tell them the gospel, which I did. I gave him books, and he started reading his Bible and everything, and eventually got saved.
Right.
So that was, I wouldn't advise this, because you go through hoops thinking, you know, you didn't want to get too involved with somebody. So, but then he got baptised in the meeting in Brechin at that time. There was a small meeting in Brechin. It's not there now, but we didn't have a tank, you see, in our old Gospel Hall. So, so as I say, that was when things happened, and we were losing the hall and got a new one. And of course, he found this bit in the town, next to the fire station, actually. And there was old houses all to be getting taken down. So that's where we got the ground. So we got we're downstairs and upstairs in our old hall. So we got the exact square feet of ground, which was double the actual site of the building. And the hall was built. They gave us the money, which we banked. And from the interest, we were able to get a tank, all our seating. And it was really absolutely amazing that we got the hall built for free, plus all this stuff we didn't have before, you know. Yeah. So
it's amazing how God provides these things.
You just look back and you think you're amazed at it, but you shouldn't be, because that's how the Lord works, you know.
Yeah. So eventually yourself and your husband took over the guest house from your mum.
My mother decided to retire. So we took it over in 1982 and had it till 1998. Right. I think it's almost 17 and a half years or something. So it's full 17 years actually doing it. And so halfway through having the Kepties, there was a wee shop next door selling fruit and veg and that. And he decided he'd had enough. He was a Londoner, was wanting to go back to London. So he said, would you think you'd like it? So we thought about it and thought, well, that would be ideal for a wee tea room. So we got this building next door. It wasn't that big, only seated 20 people. But the thing about it was next door to the dining room for the Kepties. So if we ever had an overflow, we could just put them through there, you know. So yeah, we had it for about 10 years before we retired, you know.
And did you feel that was something that God wanted you to do?
Yes, we had it as a Christian guest house where we didn't have smoking, and then in the evening we'd have sing songs in the lounge, and that was absolutely brilliant, you know. Yeah. And all the talent we used to have is, you know, I sung there as well, of course. And I remember a couple coming and they'd seen it. I used to put it in Christian magazines like the Christian Herald and places like that, and the Believers and different things. There was a couple came. I don't know where they'd seen it, but he was in the what does it call them? Boys Brigade. He had this, so they weren't really Christians, and of course they decided that because of all this singing that we had every night, you know, they weren't quite their cup of tea. So we went. They said, "We'll just stay in the rooms. We don't want supper." However, I would take it into them anyway, and he was there for 2 weeks. So I think they must have thought to themselves, "Fancy having to do this for 2 weeks." But at the very end, the last night, he stood up and he said he'd never experienced anything like this in his life, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, we didn't preach. You know, we didn't. So somebody would maybe give a wee epilogue at night, you know, or that, you know. So we had experiences like that too. It was, I could write. Somebody said I should write a book, or maybe add it to my memoirs.
Aye, that sounds a good idea. I guess back at that point, Arbroath must have been a bit of a sort of holiday resort then, eh?
Oh yes. I mean, we eventually 3 caravan parks, you know, which was quite good, you know. Actually, in the summer, no, I was saying in the summer, we couldn't do it in the summer. I remember Fred and I going round the caravan parks with tracts, you know, and at one point as well, we decided that we would tract the whole town. So we just decided to do that, and we saw somewhere we could get tracts from Canada, and we sent them a letter and asked, was it possible to get any tracts? There were 2 sackfuls came to the door. There must have been about 5,000. I don't know how many tracts. So we were all right for tracts, and they were good gospel tracts, you know. So we went round with them with an invitation to the hall.
At some point during your time in Arbroath, your daughter Marjorie arrived as well. Tell us a wee bit about that.
Oh yes, well, she was about 2 years married by that time, and she was very small. I was in hospital for 6 weeks having her, you know, so that was quite a thing, you know. So she, when we got the tea room to open, she was just leaving school and going to college, and we got her as a placement. So it was really great that she was able to work for me, and also I got paid for it as well. So it really helped. It was good. We saw the Lord in this, you know.
Yeah.
It is absolutely brilliant.
And that's where she learned all her baking skills as well.
Oh yes, yes. She used to do all the baking. And then somebody asked her to make a cake for something special. So it was a castle they wanted. So she made this castle and gave them it as a donation. And then, of course, that's when it started. So I was, how do you know bake cakes? So she started doing cakes, and it was just ongoing. You know, Christmas time, I don't know how many Christmas cakes she made. You know, they're all set out in the dining room in the ketches, you know. So, Margie was married, I think, the year we stopped having the ketches. So we got a house in the town. Right. And then, of course, my Fred took dementia, and I had to look after him. He had it about 14 years, so it was quite. I mean, I never knew anything about dementia, so it was all a learning curve to me. Yeah. So then he died. He was just over 80. So.
Right. And that must have been difficult. How did your Christian faith help you with that sort of period of time where you were caring for him, and then even after you lost him?
Yeah, well, you really depended on the Lord for thinking about things, you know, you felt, you know, you weren't alone really in that way, you know. And the thing was, we just retired from the Kepties, so it really, in fact, the day we were moving, he says, "What are these people doing here?" I says, "Well, we're moving today, Fred." "Nobody told me," you know. And this is the thing that went on all the time. But you just got used to. He did eventually end up in a home for about 2 years, 2.5 years before he actually died, you know.
After your husband passed away, you moved to Bridge of Erne to be a wee bit closer to Marjorie and James.
That was, well, at that time, Gregor was just a wee boy, and Marjorie was coming through to see me as often as she could. And then, so eventually I thought to myself, well, I was just as well going through there as her coming back and forward, because you didn't see her all that. I used to come through at weekends and things like that. So I just decided to move. That's 9 years ago since I came to Perth. And I keep saying, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I've just felt at home, you know.
Yeah, you're just round the corner from James and Marjorie and Gregor as
yes,
well.
Yes, we're only 10 minutes of their walking. I can't walk that far now.
No, but you do. You've got your wee scooter though, don't you?
I have a wee scooter, yes. And in lockdown, that was quite good, because I just used to go out in the scooter and go around the village. And then lately, I've actually got a walking aid that I use. It's like a chair with 4 wheels that I go out into the village for a walk, you know. But I don't walk far. It's just as far as I can. I keep stopping, having a wee seat, you see.
So you don't use the scooter as much now then?
Well, no, and it's actually a bit. The pavements are sometimes quite dicey, so Margie will tell me, you know, don't go those roads. You know.
What's the top speed it can go to?
4 miles.
4 miles an hour. All right.
4 miles an hour, yeah, and it's quite fast actually. You're along. I don't go as fast. I go about 3 miles an hour, you know, unless it starts raining, I get home quick.
You've not mowed anybody down in it yet or anything?
No, not so far. It's quiet, you see, people don't hear it, you know.
Right. You've got a horn on it though, do you?
Oh yes,
and
I've got
clear the
signals, right? I can signal if I'm going right or left. Yeah.
And you're part of the gang that goes out for coffee and lunch.
Oh yes, on a Monday. That's to be shelved, you see. Yeah. But yeah, there was up to 8 of us was out on a Monday, you know. Joyce and Mary are very good taking us out and that, you know. So we went to different places, so it was really great, you know.
I was asking, and I was trying to get out of them who was the worst behaved out of all you ladies, but they wouldn't tell me. Maybe you've got
no, I don't think they would tell you that, and I'm going to tell you either.
It's great you can get that bit of company though.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That's really one of the benefits anyway of being a Christian. You've not only you've all these people there, the fellowship and if anything happens and people are ill or that, they pray for you. You know, it's good to know that they're there for you.
Absolutely.
You know,
we'll come towards the end now. A few more general questions.
Right.
So, first of all, as I ask everybody, have you got a favourite Bible verse?
Yes. John chapter 14, verse 27. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. That's been, but there's one other one that has been great just recently. Is Romans 10:9. That if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. You know, because the devil's busy when you're trying to make you lose your faith, you know. So I find that verse great, that you've got that assurance, you know.
absolutely. No, that's great. And as we've mentioned once or twice in the interview already, I know that you enjoy singing and you used to do these solos. I'll not ask you to give us a solo just now, unless you particularly want to, but
oh, no voice for that now.
What would be your favourite hymn?
Right. It's 347 in the Redemption. Wait, I'll need to look that up because I keep forgetting the name of it. Right. Since Christ my soul from sin set free, this world has been a heaven to me, and in its sorrows and its woes, 'tis heaven my Jesus here to know. That's been my favourite for a long time.
Great.
It's such an assuring hymn, you know.
Yeah. No, that's a great choice.
Uh-huh.
And you like writing poetry and things as well. I forgot
Oh
to mention
yes,
that earlier.
I do write poetry too. That's another thing I used to do. In our young days with Bible classes, they always had a social point, and they would get people to come and they would be singing a guest speaker and somebody that did poetry.
Oh, well, you'll need to publish the book with your poetry, along with your memoirs, and along with the stories from the guest house as well.
Oh dear.
I'll keep you busy.
I know, that's it. I could do.
Excellent. The final question is, what would you say, looking back over the years, has been the best thing about being a Christian?
Well, the first thing is that I know I'm going to heaven. That's one thing. And the other thing is the fact that you've got fellowship and you've got, you can pray. I mean, there's a two-way thing. You pray to God and he speaks to you through his word. That's always been in my life. So, and definitely the fellowship, because I think, I had loads of friends, I don't know how it would have been if I hadn't been a Christian, because actually all the ones I knew then, I don't know now, because it really sort of moving away, lost touch with them. So, but that's.
But you gain new ones wherever you go as a Christian.
Well,
really,
that's it. You see, you had the people in Arbroath, and then now the people in Perth. So it's been great.
Excellent. Well, I think that's us about done.
That's done.
That's us just about done yet. So thank you very much, Nancy. Really appreciate you doing that. It's been very interesting to hear your story. Thanks to everyone who's watched from home, and hopefully you'll be able to join me again next week for another interview. But until then, goodbye and God bless.